Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Bryce Wayne. Today we'll be discussing how colleges and universities are preparing for a possible return to campus. The COVID-19 vaccine is swiftly lowering cases and deaths nationwide, and vaccination sites like the one here at Cal State Northridge are opening up all across the country. And the CDC is beginning to advise schools on how to reopen safely. Governor Gavin Newsom says we might even see K-12 schools reopen this school year. But what about higher education? When will we see students return to campus? California State University Chancellor Joseph Castro says while the vaccine may not be mandatory, the CSUs are still planning to have some in-person classes for fall 2021. The exact plan will be different for each of the system's 23 campuses, and they will follow their local community's health recommendations. But how will a university protect its professors, and can students return to campus safely? On Point's Angela Gonzalez has more.
Thank you so much, Bryce. Joining us today is marketing professor Beruchashvili, nursing student Samuel Sherry, and student Maurice Walker. All right, everyone. We talked to CSUN Vice-Provost Matthew Cahn about whether CSUN will make the COVID vaccine mandatory. He says it won't be.
The CSU is not requiring vaccination prior to fall 21. Now, I'm saying that's at this point. It could be that things change. It could be that CDC and FDA give full clinical approval and so on. But at this moment, we anticipate that it will be strongly encouraged, but that it won't be required.
Samuel, are you worried that people won't take the vaccine if they're not mandatory?
I think that it is a concern, depending on people's backgrounds or knowledge or lack thereof, and combined with the fact that a vaccine has never been created as quickly as these ones have been, I think it is natural for there to be some concern about both its efficacy and its safety. I know that different locations are not mandating or requiring their own employees to get the vaccine. And I think for the most part, that's the right call because, again, everything is so new. Both the coronavirus itself is novel, the vaccine was developed so quickly, it's novel. There are so many yet undetermined factors. And so I am concerned that some people will not get it, but I am hopeful for the most part that over time, people will realize that it is for the best and side effects are minimal and everybody needs to do their part and get vaccinated if they can, when they can, to get to that level of herd immunity so that we can get back to something resembling normalcy again.
Yeah. Professor Beruchashvili, should it be mandatory for students to come back to campus and staff to get vaccinated?
I think I would agree with Sam that it would be a little bit difficult to mandate students to get vaccinations. Obviously, it's in everybody's interest. The students and staff and faculty administration, we should all be vaccinated so that we feel safe and confident stepping back on campus. We are a very large campus on a daily basis. There are tens of thousands of individuals passing through campus. It's not only the students, but let's not forget the people who also drop students off or pick students up. We're a large campus. And in order to be able to go back to normal, we do need to be vaccinated. But unless, again, there is a mandate, probably it's not going to go as fast. A lot of people will choose to wait longer. I've already heard from, and it's anecdotal, obviously, but we discussed this in my classes. I have large student body that I teach, and students do mention that they have concerns and they want to wait it out. They want to wait for at least 6 months or so to see what kinds of side effects emerge and then get vaccinated. So obviously all of these factors, it's a very complex issue with multiple layers, and it will be a challenge. So unless, again, it is mandatory, I don't think that many people will volunteer to be vaccinated. And then that means that we might not be able to go back to full capacity as planned. And we might have to readjust our reemergence on campus.
Let's hear another piece of our interview with Vice-Provost Matthew Cahn. He says no one will need to come to campus if they do not feel safe.
We are not creating any expectation that students must be on campus or that faculty must teach a face-to-face course, but we hope that those who want to and those who feel secure doing so will have the opportunity to do so.
What would we need to be done for you to feel safe returning to campus? Samuel, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Well, like Professor Beruchashvili said, the campus is so large and there are thousands of individuals there at one point, especially in classes where you're sitting next to people. There's such an opportunity for super spreader events. And I am not an epidemiologist, but I feel like we just have to listen to the experts on this issue, people who whose career it is to study this, like Dr. Fauci, like everybody who is repeating over and over what the correct things to do are, social distancing, wash your hands, cover your mouth, just use common sense until we reach the level of herd immunity in which everybody, or at least the majority of people are vaccinated. There's just so much potential for something to happen, especially because people could be infected and still not even know it. They could be asymptomatic. A place like a college university is probably not the safest place to reopen again, just because it has so many individuals in it, on it at any one time.
Maurice, what are some things that you're going to do to take precautions?
Yeah, I wouldn't really plan on returning to campus anytime soon because I'm high risk.
So how would you feel about having classes online versus having classes on campus? How do you feel?
Originally, I was very anxious about it. I actually took a whole year off of school because of that. I already kind of had a hard time in school in person, and I didn't expect it to get any easier going online. But when I actually gave it a shot, I'm doing online classes this semester, it ended up being the perfect accommodation, as a matter of fact, for the disease that I do have.
What is the condition that leaves you immunocompromised?
I was born with a genetic disorder called Anderson-Tawil syndrome. It affects about 100 people on Earth, and that is not an exaggeration. And then when I heard about, this particular COVID particularly for people with respiratory problems, I have asthma, for people with neurological problems, I have a muscular dystrophy, and for people with heart problems, it's particularly bad for them. And so when I heard about it, I was like, yo, that's the perfect thing to kill me. And I have not left my house since I heard about it.
Professor, knowing that you have a lot of students, how do you feel about having such a big class? And do you think that classes will return to their full capacity?
I believe that at least as far as our college goes, College of Business, David Nazarian College of Business and Economics, right now, as Provost Cahn was also mentioning, it is voluntary for those faculty and staff who feel comfortable going back to physical campus. So it's entirely voluntary, but in terms of large classes, such as the ones that I teach, I believe they will stay virtual even through the full semester of 2021. And I actually believe that that's a very sound and strategically justified decision, at least for virtual classes, because our campus and especially our college doesn't have the kind of room capacity to accommodate, to comply with all of those social distancing requirements and at the same time hold the class in person. With smaller classes that will be possible because we do have, for instance, again, next to Buxton building, we have Noski Auditorium that seats 165 individuals. And so a small class of 40 or 50, even 60 students probably could be spread out in that large lecture hall. But that will be probably the extent to which we can accommodate classes. But you cannot absolutely. So we probably will have virtual classes, large size classes, still virtual.
Yeah. Moving forward, the word normal is going to take on a whole new meaning. Rebekah J. Child, the department chair and program director for the Department of Nursing at Cal State Northridge, had some thoughts about what we might see moving forward.
You know, there's going to be distancing and face masks and, you know, washing your hands more and all that good stuff. But I really think that we just need to get back into some normalcy, because I think this is going to crush people in the same way that we don't know necessarily what COVID-19 is going to do to people in the long run, or the vaccine. We also don't know what this kind of mandatory social isolation is.
Do you think that it's possible to go back to this normalcy?
Maybe if we can work out the plan of incremental reemergence on campus, then it will be possible. But then again, it will depend on assessing the space capacity and also having some kind of streamlined system of checks in terms of how many people can enter campus at the same time. Again, that will be associated with not just cost, but also a lot of scheduling and planning details. So again, realistically, maybe to some very small extent, but I don't expect it to happen on a large scale before we had COVID-19, not in this extent.
Maurice, when do you think that you'll feel comfortable going back to on-campus learning?
So the thing about that is I don't really think that it's like as easy as just being comfortable with it. I don't think I'll ever fully be comfortable. It'll be a minute before and by a minute, I mean that hyperbolically, but it'll be a while before I'm actually comfortable to be on campus. But I can't let my paranoia get the best of me. If I let my paranoia get the best of me, I mean, I wouldn't have even made it this far. So, in short, I think that I would probably, once I saw people coming back, I would probably give it at least 6 months.
As a student, how do you feel like, even if you're not returning, how do you think the social life of campus will be?
Oh, when we return?
Yeah, so if students were to return this fall, how do you think the social life will be?
I think even with the 6-foot rule, I think that we'll have an inclination for it to flourish. I think we're deprived of true intimate communication and interaction, and we desire it. It's very much so a part of human nature. We love that. And that's good. That's beautiful. And so I would hope that even with the 6 feet of distance, even with the masks, even with the hand washing, we found a way for it to flourish.
So Vice-Provost Matthew Cahn says that everyone returning to campus will be required to follow safety guidelines.
Students and faculty and the public generally will not be allowed to come into a classroom if they are not following protocols. If a student feels that they do not want to follow required protocols, mask wearing, maintaining social distance, etc., that's a choice they can make, but they cannot come to campus unless they are wearing a mask and so forth.
So Samuel, how worried are you about having to deal with students and faculty who don't follow these rules?
Well, personally, I am not too concerned, but that's because I'm already in a healthcare environment where I'm probably more exposed to things than other people normally would be. You know, I'm in a hospital and people there are not in the best condition. So I am not personally too concerned. I've also been vaccinated. I've already had 2 doses. I would err on the side of caution because there are people like Maurice who may have underlying health conditions that you don't know about. And so you just have to take that into account when you think about reopening things again. Everybody has to be on the same page. And this is something that we've never experienced before. And so we've never had to think or think how to deal with it, how to plan, how to reintegrate going back into society, what that's going to look like. So I feel like you just have to err on the side of caution, do all of the things that everyone is proposing, all of the ideas that are out there, but take it a kind of like a piecemeal approach. It was good to see Dr. Child, director of our program, like as she touched on a good point, that there may be other impacts on our mental health that we won't see for a long time. Like Maurice was saying, like he hopes that when we get back on campus again, we can kind of flourish, because we're not meant to be alone. We are social animals. We would like to be surrounded by our friends and our family and our classmates, but that's really hard to do unless everybody is on the same page, and which we all know that is really hard to do, to get everybody on the same page.
Professor Beruchashvili, are you concerned about conflicts with students or maybe even faculty that feel that they don't need the mask or don't feel restricted to wearing the mask?
I don't know whether conflict is too strong of a word. Obviously, at this point in time, everybody knows what the risks and dangers are. And at least, again, anecdotally, when I discuss this in my classes, and I also do a little bit of polling, majority of my students are very much in compliance. They wear masks. Many of them also work. So, I don't think that it would be really that big of an issue. But obviously, there will be isolated individuals. At least that is my point of view. Isolated faculty, isolated students here and there who probably won't consider it necessary to comply with social distancing and mask wearing rules. But again, I think that those would be not a very big number of people, hopefully. Again, we are campus, we are people of education. We're surrounded by knowledge and information. So I think that maybe conversation always is the best way to approach this kind of issues. But on the other hand, we already heard what the administration thinks, that those students and faculty who do not want to comply will not be allowed on campus. And I think that's the right approach.
Let's hear from Vice-Provost Cahn one last time. He says it will not be the same post-COVID.
The university will likely never return to the pre-COVID model, where everyone had to show up for 4 or 5 or 6 classes and everything was structured in the way it's been structured for a century. That doesn't mean that we don't value in-person instruction. We absolutely do, and that will remain our core mission, in-person instruction. But we also recognize that more students may prefer having some type of virtual instruction as a supplement or as a component of that.
So, Maurice, what are some changes that you're looking forward to when you do feel it's safe to return to campus?
I haven't thought about that. Because, the tendency is to expect, that we return to what we had before, right? But, it is inevitable that things will be different. Well, I'm kind of a stickler for germs, so I'm looking forward to more people washing their hands. I think that's my only real answer, though. I'm sorry.
Samuel, what do you think about that?
Sure. Well, during the summer semester, at least our program, we had the option, we had the option to go back on campus if we wanted. We didn't have to. Others could take class via Zoom. But for exams, before things were shut down, again, we were required to be on campus. And so we had to make sure that we were socially distanced in our seating, to make sure that we were the requisite 6 feet away. It's hard to predict what the future is going to look like, because we don't know how far away we are from 70%, say, of people being vaccinated. We don't know how the virus is going to change over time. It already is. We don't know if it's going to be like the flu, where everybody is not required, but should be getting a flu vaccine shot. They should be getting a vaccine shot for this every winter. So we don't know if it's something that is going to be part of the new normal. If it's something that is as deadly as it has been over this past year. So I just hope that whatever the future looks like, it just takes the inherent risks that are there and puts the safety and well-being of people first before we think about going back to quote unquote normal.
So, Samuel, should campus access be restricted to people who are faculty and students only? And if so, how could that be affected for everyone's safety?
I think right now, access to campus should be restricted. Again, I am not an epidemiologist, I'm not a virologist, I am just a nursing student, but the spike in cases in America, in California, in Los Angeles was higher than anywhere else in the entire world. So if there were any place where access to public places should be restricted, it probably should be here, at least until we have a better idea of where we are, again, in vaccinations. Because as of right now, that's our best bet in controlling it. People, for the most part, are I imagine, fatigued from doing the social isolation, which before the vaccine was our best bet at getting a hold of this. But as of right now, things are still, generally speaking, worse than anywhere else in the world. So access should be restricted, at least for the next few months. Again, this is just what I'm hearing, and I'm taking advice from the experts like Dr. Fauci.
So, Professor Beruchashvili, do you think it's a good idea to open up study rooms in libraries again?
Not at this point. I don't think so. Again, I would reiterate what already has been communicated by the provost and the rest of the administration. Also, I agree with Sam. Right now, we're not in the situation when anybody would feel, even if, let's say, half of the campus population were vaccinated, 50%, which is a lot of people, and that's totally hypothetical because we're not going to get there anytime soon. It still wouldn't eliminate anxiety and fear that a lot of students, not only students like Maurice with underlying conditions, but students in general and also faculty about showing up on campus, and especially being in enclosed space such as the study room and the library, where, again, those library rooms, maybe 2 people, maximum 3, can safely sit around the table in a socially distanced manner. But again, if you have to be in mask and be socially distanced, I know that it's better to see somebody in person versus not seeing them at all and only staring at the screen all the time. But again, safety comes first. So I don't think that we are anywhere near that stage where we can allow that kind of access to campus facilities. I personally think that probably the next year 2021, will be dedicated to vaccination, not just in our state and county, but across the globe. And maybe 2022 would be the time to start thinking about reemergence in, like I said, very planned manner back to campus.
How do you feel about returning to campus, and what are some precautions you as a teacher are going to take not only for your own safety, but for the safety of your students?
Right now, as I mentioned already, our college is making it voluntary for faculty who feel comfortable returning to campus in the fall to return. So it's voluntary. I personally do not feel comfortable returning to campus. I also haven't gotten any of my vaccines yet. My husband is professor at Cal State Long Beach, and he already has gotten both doses. But even he, when we discussed this, even he would rather still continue teaching via Zoom. So I personally wouldn't feel comfortable, and that's why I appreciate that it's voluntary. But if I were forced to come back to campus, then I probably would have to teach in mask, and I probably couldn't have any office hours unless, again, my office will allow 6 feet distancing. You know, many of our offices are not that large, and teaching in mask, even if it's a socially distanced teaching in person, I think it a little bit defeats the purpose. So I think I would absolutely wear a mask. I would require everyone to wear a mask. I would require everyone to wash their hands and not sit close together. But I don't know how I would really teach the way I teach, because students wouldn't even be able to do group activities, right? So like I said, we're not there yet. I agree with Sam. We still need to wait it out because it takes time to vaccinate close to 40 million people. Right now, LA County has only vaccinated 1,600,000 people, which is really, it might sound a lot, but it really is not. So yes, we are reasonable people. We would take measures of precaution, but I think that at this point in time, it's a little premature to be thinking of going back in full capacity.
That's all the time that we have for today. I wanted to thank our guests for taking the time to speak with us today.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Play Eric Amarola's Race Day Mix.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings. You can also watch us on LA 36 and Santa Clarita Valley Television. For Angela Gonzalez and producers Kristen Karmazin, Elizabeth Medina, and Danielle Torres, I'm Bryce Wayne.